Good morning from Goldmine Trail Greenhouse. As promised, I'm going to do a quick review of the Chinese diesel heater that I have in our greenhouse. So the diesel heaters were designed by the Germans at the end of World War II. Their patent wore off, and so now there are plenty of companies overseas that are making the Chinese diesel heaters. So this is what a standalone unit looks like. They call it a separated unit. This is just one brand, Vever. It has inside, it has a motherboard, it has a glow plug. These can be mounted in any position that lets the glow plug be to the top. In other words, you can put it down flat like this, or you can mount it to a wall as long as the glow plug is facing up. You do not want to mount it like that. On the bottom, you've got a fuel intake for the diesel. You've got an intake and an exhaust as this burns. So as this burns, when this is running, these fins here inside the combustion chamber heat up. It has a fan that turns on and blows the heat through. You can get some tubing. It will run to various locations with the diffuser. You can point it up, you can point it down. Your intake, what draws the air in, has got configuration like this. Also has a silencer if you're worried about the noise that goes on it. And that's the way I run mine inside the heater. So these heaters come with your exhaust tubing, which goes out the wall. There's a plate. If you're mounting it to a combustible surface, this plate gives you a little bit of space there. It comes with the wiring loom, instructions, and it comes with a motherboard, or actually a control board, and a Bluetooth remote control. This is all plug and play. Everything plugs in. So from this display board, you can set your temperature parameters. So these units, when they are called for heat, the glow plug internally will glow. It'll heat up. It'll start, the fuel pump will start ticking, drawing fuel from your reservoir. Many of these include a reservoir. This is a 10 liter. That fitting in the bottom is what they comes with it. That can be mounted anywhere. We'll see in a little later on video number 2 or part 2. We'll see how we have mine set up in the greenhouse. I have mine plugged into a 15-gallon poly drum. 15 gallons is just big enough for me to take the drum out, go fill it up, and then wrestle it back into the greenhouse without killing myself. So when these call for heat, they'll start blowing the heat. There's 10 speeds to these, so you'll hear it kind of ramp up. It reminds me of a little bit of a jet engine as it's ramping from speed 1 all the way to 10. Once the interior temperature is reached, as programmed on the control panel, this will then idle down to the absolute lowest speed and just sit there and chug. Now, as you take a look at this fuel line and this fuel pump, you can probably imagine that there's not a whole lot of heating oil or diesel making its way through that. That's correct. That's why these heaters are so efficient. A lot of them advertise that you can heat 24 hours on a medium setting and use a couple of liters, and that is entirely correct. These things are very efficient. So we'll go ahead and button this up, and then we'll take a quick walk out to the greenhouse, and you can kind of see how I've got mine set up. Now let me just talk real quick also. I mentioned that these things never really shut off. They just idle down to their lowest setting. With the key fob, or if you get one of the ones that are Bluetooth enabled, you are actually able to monitor and shut the stove or the heater off from the remote fob or from your smartphone. Downside to that is you almost always have to kind of be around to monitor it. There are, to my knowledge, two people that make accessories for this, for lack of a better term. One of them is called Afterburner. Gentleman in Australia, Ray Jones, makes actually a replacement control board that has a external temperature probe. When that external temperature probe reaches your set temperatures, it'll idle the engine down, let it cool off completely before shutting it off. That's the important part. You don't want to just disconnect these from power, because that aluminum heat exchanger that I showed you in there, if it's still really hot and you just shut all power to it and it turns off the fan, then you could have a little bit of a meltdown in there. The other gentleman is in the United States. He makes a product called Burrick. So he has a fob or a remote that clones to yours. He's got a motherboard, or excuse me, not a motherboard. He's got a controller that is controlled by his key fob. There again, that'll also give you a set of temperature parameters to control, and then you can control it. Once you have it set on the control board, it'll remember those temperatures, and then you can leave it unattended. You don't have to be in the greenhouse at that point. So as mentioned, I run the Afterburner. They are a little harder to get now because of the tariffs, but Ray's product is excellent. I have not had firsthand knowledge of Bowrix, but from all the reviews I've seen, it's a very good product too. But both of those will accomplish the same thing. They will let your heater actually come to temperature, to the temperatures that you set, cool itself down, and then go into a standby mode. So stick around and we'll go see how we've got mine set up in the greenhouse. So here we are with part number 2. We're out in the greenhouse, and this is my heater setup. I've got mine on a shelf. I wanted a little bit of shelf space to store some other things. I've got the intake that we talked about. Some people will run these outside as well, so you're drawing in fresh air in for your combustion. For up here, when it's 30 below, I would rather be pulling warm air from inside the greenhouse through the combustion and then exhausting it. So I'm exhausting out the bottom. I'm going outside. I just made a simple little hole with 3-inch dryer ducting. I've got a little bit of mineral wool, rock wool around it to help insulate. This gets extremely hot when the heater is running. We talked about the fuel pump. That's the little fuel pump. This unit, I think I neglected to mention it earlier, is a 12-volt unit. This runs off of a battery I have down here on the floor, set up to a little trickle charger. That's just a marine, deep cycle marine battery. The reason is some people, even though this is 12 volt, some people will get power supplies that are 12 volt. That's great. That works perfect if you're in an area. Out here in the hills north of Fairbanks in Alaska, we get frequent power outages. So I don't want this thing to be running and have my lights go out and the power go off on this unit and it get too hot and melt. I don't care if the grow lights go out around the plants, but I want at 40 below, I want that heater to stay running. So it's hooked up to a 12 volt with a battery tender, always stays running. That little pump will just sit and tick, and you'll see a very small amount of fuel make its way up into the combustion chamber as it's burning. I've got a 15-gallon poly drum with that green tubing just drop down into the side of it. I can pull this out when it's empty. I can get it to town, get it filled up, get it back out here, get it slid into place. That's about as big of a fuel reservoir that I would want to do given the space. So this is the controller that came with the heater originally. I ran for about a year with just this controller. Heater worked great. Well, then I stumbled across, like I mentioned in video 1, the Afterburner. So the Afterburner supplies a new controller. It's Wi-Fi enabled. You can control it from anywhere in the world once you set up an account with a a broker. But around the house, I can be in the house, upstairs, I can pull up, I can tell what my heater's doing, I can see what the internal temperature is. Gives me a lot of peace of mind. With this comes a temperature probe that you can set. And so I try to keep that about the height in here that most of my plants are, most of my foliage. So it goes to that. And this is all plug and play. So when I unplugged the factory, Ray's plugged right into it. Piece of cake. He also comes with his little key fob if you want to control it from around the vicinity. The one thing that I did have to do with the afterburner is I had to remove the original motherboard and replace it with a $15 motherboard that has digital capabilities. And Ray's Afterburner's website goes through all of the heater manufacturers. If you've got heater X and it's got a motherboard that looks like this, well, you've got to change it out, and Ray's got links on what to change it out to. It's so easy. One bolt, actually a screw, and these are very close to the same size. So when I took this one out, this is my backup. This is a spare for me. One screw, and as you can see, the plug-ins are exactly the same. So it was a plug and play, very easy. On the Bowrick, they have on their website, they've got a list of heater brands that are compatible based on the key fob. So if you look around on Bowricks and you get pretty familiar, or take a screenshot and you see the controllers, the key fobs, that'll let you know what brand you can purchase that's compatible with their unit. They'll have a similar, it'll be off to the side. Theirs is controlled by a small USB cable, and then let you know up front it doesn't come with the kit. Because depending on where you're going to mount to control your heat, you may need a 3-foot cable, you may need a 6-foot cable, you may need a 10-foot cable. So the only thing that is not going to be included in the Bowrick is your USB cable. And that's what actually will connect to the bottom of the Bowrick control board and talk to the motherboard that is up in the heater. So these are extremely quiet. We've been out here now for, I don't know, 5-7 minutes. You've not heard the heater come on. Outside right now, we're at below 20 degrees. And as you can see, it's almost 80 in here. I have the parameter set on this to where it calls for heat at 68 and it shuts itself off at 74. And that's the temperature. We're starting to get some daylight outside, so that's why I'm pushing a little closer to 80. So for the next several hours, I may not even need my heater to come on. So that's it in a nutshell on these Chinese diesel heaters. So if you liked the first video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. If you like the second video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. If you liked both videos, be sure and share it with some of your other gardening friends. So these are going to be great. We're in a zone 2A, 2B. So as you can see in Alaska, these things keep this thing going all year long. If you're in a zone 3 that have some evenings that get a little cooler, this thing is going to save your plants to where you can theoretically be growing year round. Same thing with zone 4s. Once you get one of the two controllers that actually shuts off the call for heat, cools the heater down, your growing is just going to be exponentially going further into the winter. There's no reason why you can't be a year-round grower in your greenhouse for fairly inexpensive, depending on the price of your heating oil. Thanks for watching.